What is right for me?
Yeah.
What do I even like? What do I even want? What are my resolutions and why do they fit either my future self or the current state that I'm in? Like, how do I know these are really
Yeah.
what
And
I
that's
need?
and that's the biggest piece because people feel what they need is what they see and are
Yeah.
influenced by. So people aren't thinking for themselves anymore
No.
of what they want. Instead of just setting goals or incorporating new habits, we like to think about identity. Like, who do I want to be? Goals are very challenging because you say, I'm going to work out 3 times a week, and then you do it. Okay, the goal's over. But if you change that to, I want to be someone who's physically fit or someone who's physically healthy, that's an identity shift, which means over a long period of time, you're going to consistently go. The habits you should incorporate should be helping you lead to the identity that you want to become. Welcome back to Over Dinner. I'm Jarrod.
And I'm Dr. Nikki. We're not experts, we're just two people doing the work together and apart.
Sharing real and unfiltered conversations about the human experience.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We're excited to be back. We had family in town over the holidays.
Kids were
went
off.
So a little
If
tough.
you're anything like us, you're excited for your kids to be returning to school this next
Yes.
week.
Excited for the routine.
Yeah.
Back in
excited
the
for
routine. I'll miss, it's been fun though. I think
Yeah,
it's
you've been off
great.
for a long time.
I think like 16, 17 days.
Uh,
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, but
What a
excited to get
gift.
back. Yeah, what a gift. Lucky and lots of kids time, lots of fun.
Yeah, it'll be hard. Sydney will be sad.
She's going to be sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, Happy New Year,
Happy 2025.
2025.
Yeah.
You know, I saw it yesterday, a couple days ago. I was on Spotify. Oh yeah, you were in the car. And a Throwback Thursday playlist came up and it said, these are all songs that are turning 25 this year. And these are songs that we listen to like NSYNC, BB Mac,
Yeah.
Samantha Mumba, like all those people that were
been a
part of our
Quarter of a century. It's
adolescence
crazy.
are now 25 years
I
old.
know. Makes you feel old.
Yeah, and also music was great back then.
Yeah. It
Isn't it
was.
surprising that you can still remember the lyrics of songs that you knew 25 years ago?
No.
No.
I think know those more than probably newer songs today.
Yeah, like these ones are like ingrained in our brain.
Yeah, I think because there's pivotal moments in our life. And so if you pair music to pivotal moments in life,
Yeah.
probably activates it and stores in your memory a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like this song plays and you're like, I
You're like,
still
how
know
do I,
this.
how do I knew all the words to BB Mac.
I know.
Singing it.
I love that song.
good song.
Baby, set me. I can't.
From this misery.
Oh, it's so good.
Good.
Anyways,
Yeah, so what we wanted to share starting off the new year is something we've been doing the last few years as individuals, as a couple. And I think a lot of people do it either whether a reflection, setting new intentions for the new year, but we kind of have our own ways and thoughts and ideas to hopefully share if this is something you've done before, hasn't worked, you want to get into some sort of reflection, setting new goals, building new habits, resolutions as they call it. But we wanted to share kind of our thoughts, what we've done in the past, what's worked with us, some ideas that if it's like the standard way of doing it doesn't work for you, just some creative ideas to make it fun and to start off 2025 with just some clarity, some good intentions going into it.
yeah, I think everybody starts with wanting a clean slate.
Yeah.
And psychologically, resolutions do tap into this idea of self-improvement. And we are, as humans, are always, I mean, for majority of us, are always seeking growth. And so when the new year comes, we're like, I'm going to be able to do this
it's a marker.
thing. Yeah, it's a marker. It is interesting, right? Like you start seeing these things, like there's 3 more months of the year. You can still hit your goals.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever really, to your ideals, I mean, this doesn't really exist anyways, right?
Yeah, I don't-
The year doesn't actually really
Yeah, I've always
exist.
been like, I like the reflection, like the moment of it, but like in my mind, if you want to change or incorporate a habit, you don't have to wait for a certain moment in time. Just start now. Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to wait? People are like, I'll do it on my birthday, I'm going to start it.
Yeah.
Or, oh, so I'm going to wait 3 months until I get this thing started. But what's going to be different then
I
and
know.
why? Because of the time or the dates change or the years change.
It's more, just thinking about it, you know how people do dry January?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of like a communal collective goal that
It
like
is.
you know that you're not alone and other people doing that. So perhaps it's like it's not so individual. But I was also thinking about the fact that, as I just said, humans are deeply rooted in the sense of growth and self-improvement, but it often clashes with unrealistic expectations.
Yes.
on not only of ourselves, but what our current lives look like.
Yeah.
And so we're like, I'm gonna work out 5 days a week and start a gluten-free diet. But like if you've not done that at all,
Yeah.
you're not even had 1 day a week and now trying to set yourself up with 5 days a week when you have two kids and they get sick and you have to leave work and like all the things that happen. It just then I think a lot of people don't stay with those goals because of the unrealistic expectations they probably didn't take into consideration when they first
Yeah,
made
we'll talk a
these.
little bit about that, but it's interesting because like I work out at my gym at the office, and I know going tomorrow, brand whole bunch of new faces, and literally all of us laugh. The guys were in there pretty much every single day. We're like 3 weeks later, started right about February. It'll be back to just us in here. And it's to your point. I think it's when you're trying to incorporate new habits or change some things, you have to look at it's not like you can add something to a plate that's already full. Like people want to add these new things, but they never take anything away.
Mm.
So it's about, okay, if I'm adding something new, I have to look at, well, what am I taking away to
Mhm.
be able to bring that into my life so I'm not overwhelmed and I have the time to do so. People just forget about that. They just want to add. And then it gets to a point where it's overwhelming and it can't fit in because you have too many things now. So there's just like, hopefully that's what will be shared today, different techniques to make them stick. And to your point, it's like you can't go from 0 to 5.
Mhm.
It's like, can I go 1 day a week and then maybe build momentum as the year goes on to it becomes 2, it becomes 3, and maybe 3 is good. And 5 isn't the number you need to go to the gym 5 days a week,
No.
right? So I think there's just better ways to find success and make sure they're the right.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. Like, so social media, for example, like has this whole thing like new year, new you. And it also has new year, same you. And it's fascinating. Just like to watch how we are putting ourselves out there and marketing these different things, but specifically talking about new year, new you. We're going to start with this fresh slate, and it creates really tough expectations along with why would I follow an influencer, a fitness influencer, for example, who is not married, does not have children, is 25 and has a completely different
Yeah.
lifestyle than me. Why would I can't keep up with her double workouts, her 30-minute meditation in the morning, being able to like make a full meal. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't align. And so if I try to do that, I am going to fail. And so I think that what you just said is about like making sure that they're right for you, but that comes all the way, you unwind that. It's like, well,
It's
what
so
is
much.
right? But it is what is right for me.
Yeah.
What do I even like? What do I even want? What are my resolutions and why do they fit not either my future self or the current state that I'm in? Like, how do I know these are really
Yeah.
what
And
I
that's
need?
and that's the biggest piece because people feel what they need is what they see and are
Yeah.
influenced by. So
Yeah.
it does take what we always talk about, a lot more self. People aren't thinking for themselves anymore
No.
of what they want, right?
No.
Which I think is really important. And then you said something is like, it really isn't a fresh start because the life that you had at the
Doesn't
end
go
of
away.
24 is still there in 25. So
Yeah.
when you say fresh start, it's like not your kids are still there. They're still going to school. You still have the job. The things in your pantry are still in your pantry. Not everything wipes away because the life, it's just the calendar flipped,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's a mental marker where you're
Yeah.
like, okay, in 2025, I am going to
Yeah.
blank.
I
And so
was
there
just,
are a lot of other ways that I think you can be more successful with, let's call them quote resolutions, intentions. I've seen people do a theme of the
yeah.
year of
I
like,
do that. I usually do a word of the year.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
word of the year. So then you have this word and it can fit in many different
Yeah.
ways, right? Um, intentions is different than goals in the sense that intentions I feel like can be a little more flexible. My intention is to exercise 3 days a week, right? My goal, I don't know, like this is kind of your wheelhouse. Like, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts
Like
on
I'm an
that?
intention person, a daily intention person. How do I want to show up today?
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast. I liked what he said. The question he asked himself is, what quality about myself do I want to show today and help other people with? Or that's what I want to represent myself for today is I want to show that quality off of myself
Mm-hmm.
and use it to help others in my day to day and use it in working
Mm-hmm.
with my family. Sometimes I do intentions before I go into a meeting. How do I want to show up to this meeting? Because I think intention over a year span, as you said, intentions fluctuate based off the situation you're in.
Exactly.
So I think intention can be a daily, kind of practice or a conversation you're going to go into and you're like, I want to be a great intentionally listen in this conversation because I
Yeah.
typically don't. So I need to make sure I'm a better listener in these conversations. So yeah, I say intention is just like what quality do you want to bring in that day, in that week, in that environment to show that you want to show up,
Yeah,
right?
I love that. Why don't we talk about some of the things that we've done in the
Yeah.
past? We've done a couple different ways. It started with you. I think it was actually like a Jay Shetty podcast that you listened to. We were living in San Diego at the time, so this was years ago.
Yep.
And you did the exercise first by yourself. I think you then actually taught. You had your own framework, but
Yep.
you had taken some of the ideas behind what he was sharing, and then you made it yours. Then you taught that. Then we did it together. And I remember the first time that we did this like conversation and walking through it was very uncomfortable for
Yeah.
me. And it's part of the very first thing that I mentioned is that I don't really know, or I didn't really know, like, what do I want?
Yeah.
What are my goals? Like, what do I want? I think I keep looking at what society is saying, be thinner, have a great job, buy this
Okay.
thing, have this kitchen, like all these elements, but like, what do I really want? So we did that exercise and we shared it with one another. We answered questions. And then the next year, I think we did something very similar. But then the last year, we sat on New Year's Eve
Hmm.
and we were like dressed up, ready for the evening, but we were not going to a party. It was a party of two. And we asked each other these questions. You
Yeah.
want to talk more on
I
that?
think yeah, that was a little bit different. Like before we came and we did like the work independently
Yeah.
and then came and like shared with one another.
Yeah.
I think we had the questions before, but it was more or less asking each other. Obviously, like normal things like what were you most proud of, right? For yourself, proud of as we did as a family. Where was a moment that I really supported you this last year? Where were some areas that you needed me more? It was more from a relationship perspective and asking how did we do as a individuals, but also really in our relationship and how can we better support? So it's like reflecting on the year on the positives. So maybe some areas that we both didn't do as well with each other when we should have, and then looking in 25, how do we want to show up for each other and goals, but most importantly, certain areas that, hey, what do you need more support in, Nikki, from a career perspective, from a personal perspective, Jarrod, where do you need support? What are your goals? So I know your goals, Jarrod, heading into the year. So I know Nikki's goals heading into the year. And then how do we help each other achieve those goals? I think I like that better because it was individual, but it also is how do we support each other's individual and collective kind of how we wanted to grow
Yeah.
as a family.
And I think that actually is brings us to like the lessons of 2024. One of the key lessons I learned is how important my individual
Mm.
growth is for myself, but also as a parent and as a partner.
Yep.
That without my individual self-care, let's call it, of taking deep interest in my well-being and getting to know myself, that was probably my biggest takeaway. But
What What is the biggest thing you learned about yourself?
I think ADHD,
That's what I was gonna say.
yeah, I think coming into full awareness of its detriments
Mm.
to me, also its brilliance, but like there are things that I'm learning about myself today that I'm like, wow, how did I not see it as this? I was pairing it with you're a problem or like you why can't you just get it together? And now I'm like, oh, it's the way my brain works, which that carries its own grief in a way. But I would say really meeting Scribble
Yeah.
and like acknowledging Scribble
Yep.
would be my biggest. What about you?
Yeah, I'd say my biggest learning was both individually and in our relationship is our dance. And
Mm.
our dance, something we learned in therapy is our cycles of when we get into arguments and what that looks like. Because that was a pattern that kept repeating over and
Mhm.
over and over again, and we couldn't break it. So my biggest learning was understanding in those moments what's going on for me, what's happening in my body, what's old stories or old things that happened from my past that are showing up in that moment that caused me to shut down, go inward, and then how that impacts you, which then brings up stuff for you, which then causes you to participate, and then we get in this dance of retreat as I retreat. you escalate so you get some out of me, and it gets to a point where it's so big that I finally can get out there and I go there. But we were able to uncover that in therapy, and it was awesome to realize, okay, what was going on for me. Because I always thought like in those moments, I just don't want to make Nikki upset. Like how do I get out of this as fast as humanly possible? So that, and it's still hard. We had a conversation with our therapist this week. So for me, that was probably the biggest learning, is learning about what's happening for me when we get into those moments and how our cycle and our dance plays out, and how to actually pull ourselves out and break that cycle was probably by far the biggest thing that was
Yeah,
the most
that's
important for me.
big one for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, sure.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was anything unexpected that you learned? Or like, or maybe the better question is like, how is this now shaping 2025 for you? Yeah.
Yeah. I think knowing that now is, and I've done it once or twice, is when I see that it's starting to happen, us to start doing it. Well, we're going to that place, and how do we pull ourselves out, right, and not be in it, as we said before, be of it. So pull ourselves out and go, okay, how does this need to go, right? Because right now I'm feeling highly anxious, defensive. You're feeling like you're not being heard, or I don't have any empathy for you. So, all right, we know where this goes to. So, how do we pause, slow down? Like, I want us to have a really good conversation, and you feel supported. So, I think just what I'm hoping is that that just becomes more of our habit. That's the stuff. Dance isn't just gonna poof go away because we're aware of it. It's we've been doing it for so long, but that we can really early on when it starts is say it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
kind of make a joke of it, like, oh, we're doing it, we're about to dance, and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to move and have the conversation that we would eventually get to after a large argument,
Yeah.
but get to that rather
Sooner.
quickly, sooner.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's really great. Do we want to talk about, as we're now talking about 2025, do we want to discuss what we are doing this
Yeah,
year, as we're like setting these intentions
yeah.
and walking into, as I said, clean slate? This year feels a little bit different because like, I already started my own
Hmm.
thing. You've probably already done something for yourself. And so, in a way, it's been more individual, but not in a bad way.
No, I think that's a great point. Is that that's where you want to get to as an individual, and even in a relationship, is that no, it's just this is just a flipping the calendar. We're constantly
Yeah.
talking about these things, talking about goals, having conversations, trying to grow personally. It doesn't take a moment in time for us to do that. Maybe it's like a bigger reflection, just gratitude in the year. Hey,
Yeah.
what do we learn
Yeah.
most and stuff? But yeah, we're both constantly. I mean, I think I have reflected for me in saying like I wasn't as intentional in some other areas of my life. Like I lost my riding practice a little bit, which the year before in 23 and most of 24, and then maybe I forgot when I stopped, but I was pretty consistent on writing every single day and getting something at least out, shipping my work. And I kind of lost that for a little bit. I'm sure this was part of it, the podcast, because that amount of time that this is taken, which is still a
100%.
form of creativity and
Exactly.
writing,
Yeah.
and for me, and sharing my ideas and thoughts. But I think I'm constantly thinking about how I need to grow. I'm constantly trying to evaluate, and I think that to your point, we're both on an individual personal journey. I think this year will probably be more about us as in our relationship, and then
Mhm.
more probably with our kids
Yeah.
as well, and
Yeah.
anything around there.
I
But
think that's absolutely right on. You said it the other day that so where I am in my career, I'm stepping into it at the right, everything's the right time, right?
mhm,
Our kids are now in school for many days. I have more space for that. I've done individual work personally, which then leaves capacity and
mhm,
interest to focus on a more macro type of like the family system, right? And I think where our kids are, and now that we know that our family is complete, for those of you who listened to the episode about if we're having three children or not, and it ended with somebody said did it end with I think we are or we think we aren't.
I think it was still,
It was a question mark.
yeah,
Well, the question mark is a period now. So we are done. And with that, it brings up a new chapter
yeah,
of life. So the focus on the family can be very different
more
now that we
intentional too
get
in a
very
different way.
intentional. Um, I think when you were talking, I thought about the fact that like I went ahead and did my own thing
Hmm.
without having a conversation
Yeah,
about it
great.
or feeling like it's about the new year. It was actually just a day. It was it was started before the new year, a couple days maybe
Yeah.
before the new year, but I wasn't thinking of it as this is my New Year's resolution is to write in this. It was not even a New Year's resolution. It was that a barrier that I want to overcome is imposter
Mm.
syndrome in my life. And in order to do that, I know that I need to fill up like my cup
Yeah.
of you're enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at practices that I can do that will support that because me fueling that within myself will actually hit a bunch of goals
Yeah.
in itself,
And
right?
that's such a good point because I think one thing I see people do a lot is there's so many things they want to do. But to your point, there's certain things if you look at that list that if you actually do these two things,
Mhm.
it kind of it'll hit a bunch of everything else. So just focus on those that have a more dramatic impact and influence on a bunch of other things. Because if you try to overcomplicate or overdo it, or too many things that you're trying to do, like I'm going to get up early, I'm going to meditate, then I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat so much better, I'm not going to drink as much, all these things, it's like,
I think one in each category, right? Like
yeah,
one thing for your health, one thing in your family, one thing in your work, like one
yeah. So
area.
I do work, health, family, relationship, spiritual life. Like
Yeah.
those are kind of
One thing.
one thing, but that's still a
It
lot.
is a lot. It's so much.
Because again, the only way you can do that is what are you removing and what are you changing, right? So I think we might have talked about this in a previous episode, but I would challenge you if you're gonna incorporate something new into your life, whether that's something in your morning routine or night routine or after work or whatever that is you got to log a typical day for you and what it looks
Yeah,
like,
habit track.
a habit tracker, and like your day is just a bunch of habits most of the time. There's variances, but a typical day throughout the week for us, especially people have kids, is pretty standard. And from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, write out everything that happens and go, okay, if I'm putting this in, what am I taking out? Right. And we haven't talked about this yet, but we want to talk about this. Instead of just setting goals or incorporating new habits, we like to think about identity. Like, who do I want to be? Goals are very challenging because you say, I'm going to work out 3 times a week, and then you do it. Okay, the goal's over. But if you change that to, I want to be someone who's physically fit or someone who's physically healthy, that's an identity shift, which means over a long period of time, you're going to consistently go
And asking
work out.
yourself that, but what does a physically fit
What does
person
a
do?
physically fit person do? Okay, well, they go work out a
Right.
little bit more. It doesn't mean I have to go 5 days a week, right? But if your goal is to work out 5 days a week and then you go four, then you just beat yourself up.
Yeah.
But if your identity is like, over time, I want to become a physically fit and healthy person, that's just going to be about being consistent. And it's not overwhelming. You have to go this many times, right? But
Hmm.
it's an identity shift. So that's a really important piece is the habits you should incorporate should be helping you lead to the identity that you want to become. And identity you can also say it, how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
Let's say in 6 months or a year, how do I want to feel about myself or feel what feelings do I want to have that I'm embracing? Great. What I need to be doing to feel that way,
Hmm.
right? And then that creates a whole new thing. And then you can also, if you do the habit tracker, you can go, okay, this is the identity or this is how I want to feel. Which of these things on that list are not going to make me be that person or not going to let me feel that way? Then those are the things you remove to add in the new ones. So because what I do is plus or minuses, right?
Yeah.
Here's my identity. Here's how I want to feel. Pluses are things that help me get that. Negatives don't. So my goal is how do I have a lot more positives and negatives so that I remove a negative and I'll add a new positive. I can't add on top. We have no bandwidth to add something new without taking something out. I think that's probably most people's lives. And I think that's a really important piece, right? Because when you do resolutions, it's mostly goals, but it's not thinking about who do you want to be. To your point of if I'm just looking at social media and saying, well, this person's going to the gym 3 days a week and does this, this, and this, I'm just going to do those things. Those are my goals. You're not going to do it
Right.
because that's not who you want to be. And you actually probably can't be that person.
Right.
So who do you want to be and how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
And then what would a person that does that look like?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
I think ultimately what you're referring to is getting to know yourself and building an identity and
Yeah.
who you really want to be. And one way to really do that is to journal. Like that's one way to get to know your
Mhm.
thoughts and your goals, or I guess goals isn't the right word, but it's a great way to get things out of your head onto
Yeah.
paper. Something that I've done recently. Well, it's not like totally recently, but I have a kids win
Yeah.
journal that we write in every single night. I have it just says the date and then the initial of the
Yeah.
first child
Sid.
and sometimes it's one win. Like yesterday, Sydney, she tried an avocado, so I put that down, and then the next day, like she had 4 wins. So I like write all those things
Yeah,
down, and I do the same thing for Jake, and it's been really helpful for us, especially when you're like thinking like things aren't,
yeah.
bright, shiny.
It's a good reminder that there's wins every single day.
Right.
Our brain and tendency as human beings is to go to the gaps.
Yeah.
'Cause
But
that's just
what's really interesting on that is also like sometimes I really have to sit and think.
yeah,
But then it makes me realize like I'm creating wins, maybe out of something that I wouldn't necessarily have
yeah,
seen it that way, but I'm like, no, that was a win. Like
yeah,
I'm gonna take that. So it does help shape
yeah.
my perception. So
'Cause then
I
you start to see that, then you're looking for it now,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Since the kids had that journal, and my goal is to overcome imposter syndrome, I was like, why don't I have a wins journal?
Yeah,
So I created my own wins journal, and in there it has wins. Like I have a format that I write the same way every day. So it's wins, gratitude, a strength that I used in the day. So like it could be like we went to dinner, and I'm able to have good conversation, ask interesting questions,
yeah.
right? One way I move my business forward,
Love it.
so that could be literally like I wrote someone on a Facebook post. I followed up with a provider, like something, one small thing.
Yeah,
It could even be an idea that I had that I didn't
yeah.
actually do
And you wrote it
anything,
down. Yeah,
but I still
yeah.
did something. And then focus slash forward. So
Mm,
what this means is it's either what I want to focus on for the next day or what I'm looking forward to for the next
yeah,
day. And so I've been writing those down. And sometimes I add in like one thing to brag about
cool.
to support
Yeah.
that identity shift
Hmm.
that I'm wanting to
Yeah.
do. So I think
Is
there's
there
like
anything you do in the
activities.
morning to support the reflection later?
No, I haven't
Because
done
that could be
anything.
interesting to
Like
pair
start the
them.
morning, 5 minute journal basically.
But maybe it's like the three main things, like the thing I want to do today for my business. Maybe it's some of the ones that are like that you do follow up within the day. Because like you don't need wins or gratitude when you wake up, right? Those always come at the end of the day. But maybe like the three or four things that cause action today, right? So it could be. So we're recording this while both our kids are downstairs with Nikki's parents. And we love them and they're amazing. And this is fantastic. It's just, it's fucking chaotic.
We're just in cars
But we're
crash.
doing it.
We're in cars crashing
Yeah, it's great.
swings.
Great.
Like
But it
oh
could be
no.
like, because you said you highlight a skill that you did that day. So you could do the intention question in the morning. What intention do I want to show today?
Yeah.
Right. What am I going to do? One thing I'm going to do today to move my business.
Yeah, no, I think those are great
Right.
ideas. Well, maybe what I could do is I shared this with Jared. I saw it. I thought it was a really cool idea. Is like there's two things: jar of ideas,
Mhm.
jar of wins. So like maybe like the morning is like a jar of intention.
Yeah.
You could like write down your intention and put it
What's
in
the
the
jar
jar.
of ideas?
It's ideas that you have over the course of 52 weeks.
Okay.
So it's like
And when do you draw from it?
I think you just show it at you look at what you've thought about over the last
Oh,
52
so you don't like
weeks.
do anything with the ideas?
I don't know. Let's look it up.
You
We can
don't have
look
to
it
look
up.
it up.
Okay, but
So,
I would
I like
say
the other one though, because like
jar of
the
wins
jar
or
of
jar of
wins. Yeah,
intentions.
yeah,
I think those are
yeah. But
cool.
the jar of wins I like because what you said is instead of like how you do it, you said this couple had just wrote a win down every day, put it in this jar, and then at the end of the year, looked at read them all for all
Like what they
365, all the wins over the course of the year, and I thought that was such a cool thing.
amazing.
Like another thing, like we're trying to say, if you're not like a New Year's resolution person or anything like that, I think that's a really cool thing. Someone I forget what his name is, I heard, but a lot of people do. So he was on a podcast, but he just has an Excel file, and he writes one win down, like a
Mm,
story that happened that he can write a win down, and he
mm,
has this Excel file, and it just and he can go back and look all the time. But this is
mm.
just a practice he does to help him build stories. But he's
Right.
like, I just write out one win for the day. Family could be work, could be anything.
Yeah.
But then I just have this list, and I can tell stories off those. But then it just like it's something that feels good that I have,
Yeah, I love that.
which is that was super smart.
You said to me the other day when I told you about that I was doing this, you said you said wait 30 days and see how much this
I think two
changes your
weeks
your
because you're
perception.
back to you're changing the way your mind sees the world, right? You're moving your lens because we've said this before. You naturally go to worst case scenario. Bad things are going to happen, right? So this is everything you're writing in there is a positive and it's forcing you because even the hard moments when you have to really reflect, go, what's my win? I don't think I have any fucking wins today, but you're going to find it. And then naturally you're switching your brain's tendency to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see the world, your world, outside world will change.
Yeah,
You'll be like, oh my God, things you may never noticed before or thought would be a win, it'll feel and look different to you
for sure.
because you're shifting the
Well,
way your
I'm really
brain
excited
works.
about that.
It's
I
gonna be
also
cool.
think what we're sharing just right now, like you said it really succinctly. You said if you're not a resolutions person, this tactic is super simple to do,
Simple,
and the simplest acts sometimes have the biggest
most
impact,
profound impacts.
right? You're like what you just said that I'm doing is
Yeah,
the way I am seeing the world is just based on this
it's it.
couple minute exercise that I'm doing every night
Yeah.
to reflect on my day. And
We should come
now,
back in like 2 weeks or a month because I
yeah,
guarantee your mindset will you'll see things differently. And people,
I look forward to writing in it
yeah, no,
too.
it's exciting. And like you are dedicated no matter what time you go to bed. I turn my light off and you got your little
I
light
know.
that's attached to your journal. And sometimes you're like, Jared, what, hey, you got to win. What do you got for today? But I like it too because it forces me. Because I used to write down a journal every day, which I think I'm going to go back to because I really want to. But now I repeat in my head. I do 3 wins of the day, what I'm most grateful for, and I just rip it off in my head. But I think the practice of writing is just,
I like
I
it.
like the practice of
I
writing.
really like it. So,
No, but I'm really excited for you. Like you're going
mhm.
to notice a giant difference. The 5 minute journal I used to use, it shifted so much for me.
You know, I want to, you said something earlier about your writing practice, like kind of ebbed and flowed. Now it's like in the podcast. People, I want us to say on this just for a quick minute is so I have been writing since September 20 or August, September 2023. Okay. But that writing looks drastically different than it did for the first 9 months,
For sure.
12 months of what I was writing. And now it's evolved into like I'm not writing on the computer as much. Instead, I am writing every day, but it's in a journal and it's now in a way that is very therapeutic,
Hmm.
right? It's just really interesting. And so for people who have like had a goal, let's say like I want to write every day, but over time it evolves into maybe you started writing, but now you're speaking and sharing
Yeah.
on a podcast.
Yeah.
As you said, it's still
Yeah.
the same muscle in a way.
Yeah.
So to look at those things a little bit differently rather
Okay.
than saying like I'm just like I let it go. Maybe it just evolved into what it needed to
Yeah.
be at that time. You
Totally
know
agree.
what I
And
mean?
that's a great point because they should evolve. Things will evolve. I think the one thing I see is we set these goals at the beginning of the year, but then you don't do touch points and
Right.
you don't just like, am I going to talk about this monthly or look at it monthly and see how I'm making progress? Is it a quarterly conversation? Do I shift them? Is this just a 3 month plan? I'm not like, this isn't the whole year. What works best for you? Like, that's why instead of just thinking you have to do a New Year's resolution or what I'm seeing on Instagram or these other influencers and when I'm supposed to set goals, like this guy, Ryan Hawk, is a podcast here. He has a really hard time. He just doesn't like setting goals. He more how he wants to show up every day. That works better for him. He's like, and the byproduct of that is that probably I'll hit a lot of goals and do a lot of great things. And like, but I don't set very clear, like this is a goal that I'm gonna do and
Hmm.
hit it by this date. It's more how I want to show up and habits I'm gonna have on a consistent basis that I believe doing those lead to great outcomes.
Yeah.
And whatever those outcomes will be, great,
Yeah.
right? Kind of thing.
No, I love the habit thing. It's definitely, yeah, I think that's great. So we've talked about a bunch of different ways that you can get started with these. We can call them resolutions if you want,
Yeah,
but this new year, new you. Um, like we
not
talked,
really.
not really. We talked about, the jar of wins, the jars of intention, that Excel document, my journaling and the way I do that, the 5 minute journal. There's so many different ways. We've created a template of my journal entry that is specifically focused on imposter syndrome and asking specific questions and providing prompts that are related to supporting
Hmm.
oneself who is
Yeah.
struggling with imposter syndrome.
The prompts are really to help shift your mindset.
Yeah,
Like see you in a different light,
right.
right?
So that will be available for you to download
Yep.
on Tuesday.
Yep.
So you can have that. And we're also putting together a couples one for you that we've
Yep.
thought have been really, really helpful in the past. So make sure to be on the lookout for those.
Yep.
And other than that, is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share,
No, I
babe?
just think don't put so much pressure on
Yeah.
yourself. Keep it simple. I think it is important to reflect and to look ahead, but not in an overwhelming way. As we mentioned before, trying to do too many things and doing things because you think that's what you're supposed to do and not what you want or need to do.
Mhm.
So this isn't just something you can do and just say, all right, I'm just going to start working out 5 days a week. Like, do you really want it? Is that who you want to be? Do you want to do that? Like, this is going
Mhm.
to take some time for you to sit and actually reflect, which a lot of people don't just do. Like an hour or 2 hours with no phone and nothing and be like, really, what do I want to feel like? What do I want to be like? What's my identity shift in 6 months from now? What do I want to say I've done or I'm doing or who I am?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a tough question to ask because you also have to
Can I
be,
also add
yeah,
something? What if you ask the question, what's stopping me?
yeah, that's
Or
what I was gonna
what?
say. That's what I was just gonna say. Like,
Oh,
before you can go do that, you have to have the courage to be real with who you are now.
yeah.
Like, I'm a person that likes. I'm not saying I'm a person, but you might be like, I'm gonna be physically fit and eat healthier and go work out this many times, and then you realize that my typical habit after work is to pour a glass of wine. Like,
Mm.
and you have to be honest with yourself. Like that habit isn't supporting what I'm saying I actually want, and it's
Mhm.
gonna keep getting in the way of that, right?
But I'm saying it more so along the lines of like, for me in certain areas is like perfectionism or imposter
You're
syndrome.
talking going even deeper
Oh.
into belief systems,
Mm.
which we talked about. I mean, that's why most habits don't stick, is because we're not uncovering the beliefs that of why we don't do that action or why we do these hurting habits that we have. We don't go and go, why am I doing that? And if I know it's not right for me, or why am I not willing to do that thing, or why can I stay committed to that thing? Because there's some beliefs in there
Mm.
that you haven't gone to that next layer yet. And that's why most habits or resolutions don't stick because it's just the surface stuff. So that's if you really want to do it, you got to go that level, the deepest parts.
Well, that's that, that leads us to a whole other
Yeah.
conversation, which I think would be really interesting for us to talk about on our next episode.
Yeah.
So,
That's the work. That's the real
yeah.
stuff that we've done and continue to do is really hard because you have to be really honest with yourself
Hmm.
and get ready to go and say,
Yeah.
I'm thinking myself to be really shitty.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Totally.
which most of us do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Happy New Year, babe.
Happy New Year.
And thanks for listening, everyone. We're so glad to be back and to start this new year with you. Look out for those templates and a new episode dropping Tuesday. As always, we're so grateful to have y'all here. This has been such a joy. We loved spending our 2024 with you. And on to 2025, so many things to come. Guests on the show, lots of new learnings, and us growing alongside you. So please like, subscribe, share to those that you think would benefit from this episode and this show in general.
Yep.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week. Bye.